Shalom. Today I'm going to be doing a part two to the biblical dietary law video I previously did, and specifically I'm going to be talking about the dietary law given to Noah after the flood. Now, in this video, I'm going to be giving some background, and we're going to talk about the modification to the previous law that the Most High gave to man in Genesis 1:29, where he designated certain plants as food for man. Now, in the first video I did, I talked about how on the third day, the Most High created the plant life, and he categorized the plant life into three different groups. And he designated only two of those groups as food for man. The groups that were meant to be food were plants that yielded seed and fruit, and trees that yielded seed and fruit. The other category were the ones that wasn't designated for food, were plants that did not bear fruit or have seed, and plants that were too young to bear seed and fruit, meaning they had to be mature. So you cannot eat a baby plant or sprouts. That was not the order that the Most High gave. They need to mature, and then they're fit for human consumption. Now, today I'm going to be talking about how the Most High confirms what he created in creation for food for man. Now, we're going to be reading at Genesis 9:3, and it says, "Every moving thing that liveth shall be food for you. As the green herb have I given you all." Now, previous to this is right after the flood. The Most High is going into covenant, and he specifically gives Noah a dietary law, and he and his sons, and he is telling him the things that is required in the covenant that he's going to be making with him and the animals, and that he will never flood the earth again because of the sin of man and those types of things. He puts the bow in the cloud, and he makes covenant with Noah at this time. He gives him he modifies his dietary law. Now, previous to this word here, it says, "As the green herb have I given you all." This green herb is the same word we see in creation when he created and called it plants that yield seed and fruit. He is telling him here, just like I gave you the plants that yield seed and fruit, I am now going to give you every moving thing that liveth can be food for you as well, just like the plants that bear fruit and have seeds. So we still have what he originally gave man, which were the plants that bear seed and had fruit, but he's also allowing meat to be eaten here. And I believe this is because of the specific events that are taking place. Now, previous to this, the earth was flooded, and Noah had been on the ark for approximately over a year or so. It rained for 40 days, 40 nights, and then the earth, or the water, sat on the earth for 150 days, and then the earth was the water was receding on the earth, and that took almost over a year to take place. So Noah was going to be on the ark for over a year. He had plant grains and different foods that he had for his livestock, plant animals and stuff, all the animals that he brought on board with him. But I want to bring this point up that even before the flood, animals were designated as clean and unclean. And when he was loading the ship, the instructions the Most High gave him was that he was to bring 2 by 2 of the unclean, and 7 of the clean. Okay? So the dietary law is not just the Mosaic law that we got at the mountain. The dietary law has been in effect ever since man was created. The Most High told him, you will only be allowed to eat plants that have seeds and fruit, and trees that have seeds and fruit. If they are not mature, meaning a plant is mature when it's bearing its fruit, you are not to eat that. If it doesn't have seeds and fruit, you're not supposed to eat that, meaning something like a mushroom would be unfit, was not designated as food. We know that mushrooms grow sometimes out of feces, if you see a dead tree, rotting wood, you'll see mushrooms in it. So it's a decomposer. It's not meant to be for human consumption according to the order that the Most High set up. So when we get into these words, it specifically is telling us what was meant for food and what was not meant for food. Now, going back to this here, when the animals that were brought on, there were more of the clean animals, which you can think Noah had a concept of clean and unclean animals. So when we go into the Mosaic law, we see that clean animals were meant to be eaten, sacrificed, and so on and so forth. So he brought more of the clean animals, possibly before sacrifice. We see when he gets off the ark, he makes a sacrifice. We see that Cain and Abel were giving sacrifices in the beginning, before even in at that time. So we can see that maybe this was part these these other clean animals. There were more of them because they could be consumed, maybe eaten, as because they were clean. They were designated as clean and unclean at that time. They were also maybe possibly needed them for sacrifices. And also, if you're repopulating the earth, you want to have a lot of food. So you maybe put more of them, of the clean animals, because there's also predators that may eat them. So just to ensure that they survive and continue on. So there's things to consider. Now I'm going to continue. And in this verse, he says green herb. That is Gerak Esef, which is H6212. This is the same thing he designates as food in Genesis 1 and 29. And then the moving thing that he designates, every moving thing that liveth shall be food for you. The only time this word remes is used is for animals created on the sixth day. The sixth day are more of the land animals, okay? The other animals, meaning the fish, birds, and those sorts of things, were created on the fifth day. But the only time the word remes is used is for animals of the fifth day. So that's important to understand. It says number 57431. So when we think about what the Most High is giving, why he's modifying and allowing these certain creatures to be eaten, is because if you think about it, the earth has been covered for over a year. There's not a lot of abundant plant life, and the earth is probably not ready to receive seed at this time. If you ever had earth that was just, you know, saturated with water and there was nothing there, it takes time to dry out and, all those different things. So these certain types of living things were allowed to be food. Now, if you look up this word remes, moving things is what it's called on the sixth day of creation. So there's three different classifications of animals on the sixth day. There's one called cattle, which is called behemoth. There's the beasts of the earth, kai, eretz. There's the cattle, which is called the behemoth, and everything that creepeth is called the remes. And specifically on the sixth day, they were called everything that creepeth upon the earth. So these words in the Hebrew, they're a little ambiguous as to what they particularly are. When you see behemoth, which is 929, this is the same word that they used to designate clean and unclean animals. They called them behemoth, okay? The other ones were not mentioned as being for clean and unclean. So this is something to take into consideration when you think about what types of animals were designated as being able to be eaten as food. We know that the Mosaic Law is not in effect at this time, but we can see that the concept of clean and unclean did exist. So you can think for yourself, but from the conclusions I've made is that the meat that the Most High is giving here is the behemoth 929, which were already stated as being clean and unclean according to the before the flood and even into the Mosaic Law. So you have to do some research on that to make sure you have the understanding that you need on that. Now, when Noah was given this, previous to that, there was nothing written that said that he was able to eat meat. Was there a command not to do it? That we don't see that in Torah. So he could have already been eating meat. We know that they were doing sacrifices already. So these things are good to take into consideration. This word remes was directly related to the land creatures of the sixth day. Okay. We have a lot of different other things that exist. Kai, living things, whales, moving creatures. I mean, there's a lot of things here. But specifically, what can be noted from this is that we're talking specifically about the modification of the previously standing laws concerning food, the Most High allowing moving things or creatures, everything that liveth, every moving thing that liveth, is now allowed to be eaten. So we have to look at this and ask these questions. Why was this allowed at this time? Maybe there weren't enough plant foods to eat anymore. Okay? These types of things. And what type of meat was allowed? Remes, moving things called remes, which were of the sixth day of creation. Okay? Very interesting. Some things to pay attention to. So now we know that we're not under the necessarily the law given to Noah for the dietary law. We are under the law of Moses. But these same things, the plants that were allowed to be eaten, we see it being carried over into this law. The asef, that was still ordained to be plant food that we could eat. And now he's designating remes as being meat or moving things that we can eat at this time. Now, in the next video, I'm going to be talking about the law of Moses, and we're going to see how this plays into that, and we're going to get some understanding about why some of the animals were not designated for food and others were. And we're also going to talk about why did Jacob or the Israelites decide not to eat the sinew of the hip. Genesis 32 and 32, I believe. It talks about after Jacob wrestled with the Melech and got his name Israel, the Israelites never ate the sinew of the hip in remembrance of what happened to their father Jacob. We're going to go into that as well. So this is just talking about the dietary law given to Noah, understanding what the words actually say was given to him. It wasn't all vegetation. It was still the asef. It wasn't all living things. It was the remes of the sixth day. And if you look these words up, you'll see what type of animal life and plant life was designated for food. It wasn't all. The dietary law was never all food and all meat. There was always a distinction the Most High made of different types of living things designated for food. Now, if we understand that, we'll understand the diet that He has still prescribed for us, and we're going to go into the Mosaic Law after this. So with that, I bid you shalom. Now, we're at Genesis 9 and 4, and this is the second law that the Most High puts in place in addition to the already established law concerning which plants are designated as food. Here, we see, since in the previous verse, Genesis 9 and 3, He allows meat to be eating, or moving things of the earth to be eating specific moving things, not all moving things, specific ones. Now we're seeing that He's going to forbid the eating of blood along with the flesh that He is now allowing us to eat. And I'm going to read Genesis 9 and 4. Only flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. So even though He's allowing flesh, He's prohibiting the eating of blood along with that flesh. So we see that when Noah is given his covenant after the flood, he is now given, along with the asef, the Most High says, I'm going to give you this meat, the moving things, certain moving creatures on the earth, along with the asef that I have already given to you. That's Genesis 9 and 3. And since you are eating these moving things, you can only eat the flesh when the blood is removed from it. You cannot eat the blood along with the flesh. Okay? So this is what the Most High prescribed for Noah, and we're going to go into later on the other laws, dietary laws that come into play when the Israelite nation comes into existence. All right, with that, I bid you shalom.